I am so honored that all of you have joined us tonight. And the only words and the emotions that I'm feeling right now are just incredible gratitude and a deep thanks to each and every one of you. I want to, of course, thank the incredible leaders who have spoken before me, starting first with Mayor Breed, who I am so honored has given me this opportunity to serve and with whom I'm looking forward to serving, along with the supervisors who are here, and I know I see Supervisor Mandelman and Mar and Haney. Hopefully I didn't miss anyone. I also see former Supervisor Norman Yee. Thank you so much for being here. Speaking of Yees, it is true, as she mentioned, that some 16 years ago I got a phone call from the then member of the Board of Equalization asking me to serve as her proxy on the Democratic Party. And at the time I knew she was going places, but it is amazing to have had the chance to work with the best controller in the state of California, and that is Betty Yee. Thank you, Betty. By our good friend Rob Bonta, who's the first Asian American Attorney General. I know we are soon going to be joined by our State Treasurer, Fiona Ma. I want to thank our Assessor Quarter, Joaquin Torres, for being here with his mouth full. And I also just want to say a shout out. So I resigned from the State Assembly some 9 days ago, and I was the second half of what had been a two-person Chiu caucus, because I used to serve with an assembly member named Kansan Chiu, who is here tonight. Brother Chiu, where are you? Kansan, thank you. And his better half, Daisy. Appreciate you being here tonight. But, let me say this. When my good friend Dennis Wu, I don't know where Dennis is. Dennis, where are you? Dennis, when you called and said you wanted to pull this event together, you remember my reaction. I literally did not feel worthy for this.
You are.
This is truly overwhelming, and I'm just so grateful to you. He convinced me we needed to pull this together, in part so I could have a chance to say thanks to all of you, but also in part because we are in a moment in our community's history, and we need to recognize that. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But I really also just want to thank some of the other organizers, Hua Yang, but particularly Kaj, Ashley, folks outside of our community. And really, I want to credit Dennis for inviting such a diversity of folks who are here. Our non-Asian brothers and sisters who are here in this room. I know we have leaders from the Jewish community, Thai, JCRC. We have Drummers Amos Brown from the NAACP who's here. We have our friends from the mission. I know, Roberto, where are you? Carnival, thank you for being here. Let me just share, this is a part of my story that is not well known, but I would not be here but for Allyship. And let me say this, so some of you know my background. I had a bunch of public interest law jobs before this. In 3 of my early jobs as a public interest lawyer, my mentors were Jewish American. Because they understand if you come for any of us, you come for all of us. And a few years later, around that time, when I first came to San Francisco, I worked for a legal organization rooted in the African American community. Because we know that the Asian American civil rights struggle rests on the back of our brothers and sisters from the African American community. And when I was doing that work, my first cases were allied with Latino attorneys in the mission, fighting for the combined efforts of our API and our Latino immigrant families. That is what this struggle is about. And I know Senator Wiener has left, but I have to just share this, that when I first ran for the Assembly, or when I ran for the Assembly in 2014, I don't know if I would have won in that very close race, but for members from the LGBT community led by Senator Scott Wiener saying that we need to move this together. So, during this era of anti-Asian hate, I just want to thank our Jewish leaders, our Latinx leaders, our LGBT leaders, our African American leaders for standing with us during these dark times of hate. It is particularly meaningful that you're here, not just tonight, but you're here with us in the rallies. You're here with us in those dark moments, because each of our communities have known those dark moments. And when our communities come together, the light shines. The light shines. And I just want to thank you for that. And of course, with my incredibly patient wife, Candace, thank you, who has put up with the fact that I have had to live in Sacramento 4 days of the week for a good chunk of the year. I also want to, of course, thank my in-laws who have helped to take care of my very rambunctious and energetic son, Lucas. So I want to thank the Chens. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. And of course, I would not be here today but for the incredible individuals at my table who I refer to as my mom and my dad. So thank you, Mom. So I want to say a few brief words. I was asked by Dennis to talk about the things that matter. The things that matter to me, the things that matter to us. And I'm going to talk about three things that matter. First, race. Second, history. And third, allyship. All right, first let's talk about race. Some of you know, have heard and understand that as the son of my Chinese immigrant parents, growing up in Boston in the 1970s and 1980s, we never really discussed race. We talked about a lot of things, about how Mom wanted to make sure I kept studying, right, Mom? My wonderful tiger mom, who always hates it when I refer to her as a tiger mom. But we also, we didn't talk about a lot of subjects. We never talked about politics because Asian Americans didn't go into politics. We didn't talk about lawyering because Asian Americans didn't go into lawyering. And we didn't talk about race, despite the fact that many of us who grew up outside of California, we were the rare Asian family living in our community. We didn't talk about race when we heard the ethnic slurs. We didn't talk about race when my teachers told me that I should go into math and science as opposed to thinking about the education that led me to where I am today. But, you know, my guess is for each and every one of us who enter public service, there is that moment, or there are those moments where you realize that race matters. And I've shared this moment before, but I will just share it again, that for me, freshman year in college, when I got that phone call about 8 Asian American students at a nearby university who were headed to a semi-formal dance on a bus at 9:30 at night, when one of the young women felt the spit in the back of her hair, and then another felt the spit in the back of her hair. And I learned from my friend that these 8 Asian college students had been attacked by football players at their own university, subjected to racial slurs, to spitting. And the most disturbing thing about that incident, and I still remember as if I had been there, what happened to them, because justice was not done. Turns out, how to grapple with COVID-19, it was deputy city attorneys who advised us in how to protect ourselves. I know I asked a number of you to stand up before, but this is the moment. We have, I think, 2 tables of deputy city attorneys here in this room. I haven't met them all yet, but I'm going to ask them to stand up again. The best lawyers. And by the way, thank you and salute you, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Race matters. History matters. Now let me talk about allyship. I wouldn't be here but for the alliances that are represented in this room. All of us who are elected officials, I see Betty and Fiona, everyone's nodding their heads. We would not be here but for folks coming together. I remember when I first ran for the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, started that campaign some 14 years ago. The district that included the oldest Chinatown in America had never been represented by someone who looked like me, looked like many of us. And I was told, you're not going to win because our community, the Asian American community, is too fractured. Well, I gotta tell you, we're united today. We're united today. And whether it be the nonprofits who I've worked with over the years, represented here, Chinese Hospital, Onlock, Self-Help for the Elderly, Manila Town, the Chinese Historical Society, the Comfort Women Justice Coalition, the Chinese American Citizen League, give yourselves a hand. Whether it be civic organizations like Mingyong and the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association, our sister cities in Taipei and beyond, our friends from the Oakland Chinatown Chamber, Carl Chan, whether it be political activists, democratic activists from the Ed Lee Democratic Club, from the Chinese American Democratic Club, or, as I like to say, the old guard from the Asian Americans for Good Government. Whether it be our first responders who are here, our peace officers, our firefighters, our sheriffs, thank you. Our small business folks. I was told in 2007, Chiu, you might be interested in politics, you might have a background to do it, but you're not going to get elected because your community doesn't pull together. And thanks to Allyship, y'all did. And, by saying, race matters, history matters, allyship matters, and the last thing I'm just going to say is our next generation matters. I am so humble that we're celebrating the fact that apparently I'm the first Asian American city attorney. But I know, as I talk to my close friend, the first Asian American Attorney General, Rob Bonta, or to my friends who are the first Asian woman to be our state treasurer and controller. For those of us who are your first, we know we are going to work as hard as we can to make sure we are not the last. And we're going to keep fighting for you because the struggle continues. And as I watch my 5-year-old get out of his seat, Lucas, if you want to sit and get ready for that dinner, when we think about what life might look like when you are an adult coming to banquets here in this room, because of my hope, the future work of the City Attorney's Office in San Francisco, the future work allied with so many of you here in this room, the future work of public law office like ours, our hope is that anti-Asian hate will become a footnote in history, that the Me Too and Black Lives Matter eras will become a footnote in history, that the homelessness crisis and the climate crisis will become a footnote in history, because we are all in this fight together. And with that, I just want to say I love you all. Thank you so much.